thank you very much indeed for coming. It's great to see you all here. I'd like to thank you for coming. I'd particularly like to thank Tim Stevenson, Lord Lieutenant of the County, who will be introducing this evening.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you all very much for coming. It's great to have such a good turnout for what I think is an important event. Well, it does seem to me that thinking about the future of our city and our county requires that we take the holistic approach in refusing to attack the way in which we shape the future of our environment, the way in which our county will develop, and we all know there's a lot of potential, its economy, its infrastructure, its living space, that we refuse to look at those things in a diverse and unconnected piecemeal fashion without having due regard to the way in which the pieces of the jigsaw will fit together. In 2013, the Oxford Civic Society promoted and supported 4 debates under the banner Oxford Futures. They were widely supported by our local authorities, by our 2 universities, by the Low Carbon Hub, and were very well attended generally as they examined the implications of the range of plans that have emerged for the long-run development of our city and of its surroundings. And the results have now been brought together by Nicholas Falk in the document that you should all have in your hands, and which it's the purpose of this evening to launch. It's a document that argues, I think, coherently and expertly for a strategic regional vision for our city of Oxford and for its environs, and that we develop a proper map for getting from here to where we'd like to be in the decades ahead. It emphasises the importance of a willingness to experiment and ways in which we can overcome what may inevitably be perhaps a general scepticism in terms of the feasibility of building better neighbourhoods, changing lifestyles, and dealing with the issue of the scale of our carbon footprint.
But I don't think we could be complacent. Certainly the discussions that we have with the universities, with other institutes, they are now acutely aware that they are in a global business, a globally competitive market, and that if they cannot grow, then that growth will go elsewhere. And that's a choice we have to make and manage, and that is the role of political leadership, it's the role of planners. And it's not just growth for its own sake, it has to be managed in the context of a highly attractive and valuable environment and heritage that is part and parcel of our DNA, part and parcel of our process.
I'm Danny Dorling. I'm from the Geography Department here at the university, and I tend to look at things like demographic data. I was looking at data today from the 2001 and 2011 censuses and trying to look for extreme demographic change. I'll give you one example, and it kept on popping up among the London boroughs. It's essentially the city looks now like a London borough. One example, Oxford City has one of the lowest proportions of people of my age group now, which is people aged 45 to 59. We have a very high proportion of people aged 21 to 24. It's an incredibly young city. In the last 10 years, the number of 21 to 24-year-olds has actually gone down, because as the universities have brought in more, lots more, they've made the place too expensive for the children of Oxford to stay. They've clearly left. The playgrounds are great, the 20-mile-an-hour zones are brilliant, the cycle lanes are wonderful. The traffic is absolutely appalling. And you know, you might as well walk or cycle. Huge amounts of money coming into this place, most of which is to hire young people to do research who then can't afford to live here. And if they can afford to live here for a short amount of time, get out. What will happen if there isn't growth? I think that's the thing to think about. What happens if there isn't growth? And I do think we have to talk about Oxford almost as part of London now. The most expensive city in the world is Tokyo, has been for years. London in the last year, I think, has just overtaken Tokyo. And what I'm trying to say about that is that we're in uncharted waters. We do not know what happens when you become this expensive. So what happens to this place if you don't build, and I think it needs more than 25,000 properties by 2031. What happens if it's not actually done? It'll still exist, of course, it's existed for 1,000 years, but it'll head towards something that I think looks a bit like Santa Barbara. But I think that's where you're heading towards, is a Santa Barbara kind of future, if something isn't done. I really welcome this report. I think it does show that there is an impetus for something to be done. We need something done in a way that doesn't involve more people driving around, because there isn't the road space for them to drive on. It does need more people being able to cycle into the middle of the city, and there is land 3 miles away from the centre, above the floodplain, where those people could live, who could cycle into the city. Thank you very much.
Nicholas has asked me to say a few things about design, because I was very pleased to have been invited to speak at one of the workshops that fed into this report on the whole question of design quality. And I think it's great that this report has, in 2 of its recommendations, has stressed the importance of design. Both through this idea of setting up a design quality review panel to help work and support the local authority in its task of demanding high quality, which I think is absolutely essential. And I hope that the quality review panel here in Oxford will develop a similarly close relationship with the local planning authority, indeed the local planning authorities as well. I think if it can be spread wider, so much the better. Because I think that it needs to be used flexibly as a resource for the local authority to draw on, not just a kind of formal panel that pontificates at arm's length. I think that
there you have it, and it's not my role at this point in the evening to gild the lily represented by those 5 expert speakers, except perhaps to say that if an alien was to walk in through the door, having been outside it listening to what's going on, he would have said, "You must all have rocks in your head if, having heard all that, you don't try and draw the threads together and coordinate the way in which your city and its environment is going to develop over the course of succeeding decades."